Preheat your oven to 350 degrees and turn on the Love Boat. It's time to make a TV dinner. MiniTube. Settle down and watch MiniTube. This week on MiniTube, I wanted to make something different. I love watching the miniature food makers here on YouTube. They always make such beautiful things, cakes and pies and chocolates and roasts, but I wanted to make something that wasn't so beautiful. I'm talking a TV dinner, and not one of those quinoa, fava bean, free-range chicken TV dinners. I'm talking vintage 1960s, 1970s style Salisbury Steak TV dinner. What do you think? Let's go. I started with a scrap of clay I had left from another project, and I'm wanting to make a template for some aluminum foil. And I got a really inexpensive aluminum foil pan from Dollar General, and I'm going to use the aluminum foil from that by cutting it apart. But I'm creating these grooves to push the aluminum foil into to make a TV dinner tray shape. I thought about making the TV dinner tray out of polymer clay and then painting it silver, but I knew that it would end up thicker than I wanted it, and I wanted it to look a little bit more authentic. Plus, I just wanted to see if this technique would work, and I think it worked out pretty well. I baked this disc for about a half an hour until it was firm. No Salisbury Steak TV dinner is complete without peas mixed with carrots. I started with another scrap of orange clay, rolled it very thin, and cut very small, thin lines that I'm going to bake for about 10 to 15 minutes until they're firm. The peas were probably the most fun part of this project. You just pick a little piece of green clay off, roll it into a ball, put it down, and make another one. They do not all have to be the same size, as obviously peas can be smaller or bigger depending on their placement in the pod. Once the carrots came out of the oven, I chopped them up into little pieces using my tissue blade. And it was easier. I actually tried making them first by cutting the unhardened clay into little pieces. And obviously, if you cut them after they're firm, they just hold their shape a lot better. It was a lot less work to do it this way. Salisbury steak is, I don't know, comes from Salisbury. I don't know what a Salisbury steak is, but I wanted to make this meat look kind of like mystery meat. And so I mixed a few colors of brown with a little bit of red and squished it all around and shaped it into kind of a Salisbury steak shape and textured it with a toothbrush. This part was pretty fun too, and I think it looks really cute. I did make it a little bit too big, as you'll see later on. For the mashed potatoes, I wanted to give them kind of a grainy look. So I put some white craft sand into them and mixed it all around. I wanted them to look like reconstituted potatoes and not homemade. Once my disc came out of the oven, I took a piece of aluminum foil from the pan and used a ball tool to carve the shapes into it. You need a lighter touch than you might think. I actually broke through the first couple of pans by just pushing too hard. Once I got the basic shape, I set it down on my glass on the table and pushed with the ball tool to get the bottom of the pan to be pretty flat. Don't forget that this is all going to be covered up by food, so it does not have to be perfect. I couldn't really figure out a good way to roll the edge, so I just trimmed it really tight to the shape of the pan. And then, as you can see next, I put the fluted edges into the edge of the pan with a needle tool by pushing it up against another piece of scrap clay. And I think the result is pretty good. Ta-da! I used translucent liquid Sculpey to make gravy. A little bit of pastel in there will make it brown. And you just mix it around, and this hardens in the oven just like the regular polymer clay. I did decide that my Salisbury steak was too big, not once, but twice, and reshaped it again using the toothbrush. I find with miniatures that anytime you make something, you need to make it about half as big as you think you need to make it. Up and into the pan, and a little bit of that delicious kind of gray brown gravy. It will cook up to be a little bit more clear than you see there. The peas came out of the oven, and I can't tell you how happy that makes me. Orange and green, and they're just so stinking cute. I put a little bit of TLS in with those as soon as I remembered to take the cap off, just to hold everything together. I didn't want peas and carrots rolling everywhere. The TLS doesn't add much in terms of color or texture, but it does help everything stay in the tray. Then it's time to put in the mashed potatoes. I wanted to give them a texture like I had in my vintage packaging that I found online, and so I used a ball tool to kind of carve kind of a swirly shape into the potatoes, and then I put some TLS underneath to hold them in place. There's a lot of really great vintage packaging available online if you just use Google to find it. I found a lot of vintage TV dinner packaging, and this one even came with what it looked like originally on the back, and it was for the Salisbury dinner that I was making. I did cut off and then replace the bottom upside down so that when I fold it, it'll be right side up. Since the package I printed out only had 3 sides, I colored in the 4th side so the packaging would be complete. And then I'm just scoring the back of the cardstock that I glued the image onto. This is going to help me fold the box so that it has nice, crisp 90-degree angles. This product is called Zips, and you can find it at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. And it's just a double stick glue that has a really low profile, and it's not wet at all, so it'll just hold instantly and not dampen your paper, so everything just stays nice and neat. And there's your box. Super cute. At this point, I realized I needed to put a pat of butter on the peas and carrots and a little bit of gravy onto the potatoes so that it would match the packaging. I used some brown pastel and then added some red to try to get it to be more like the color on the box. I should have added a little bit of yellow too. I think the color would have been a little more spot on. But who says the packaging has to be like the product inside anyway? Adding some to the meat just to make it look a little more like the potatoes and gravy. Now I'm using a needle nose pliers just to do some finishing touches. I want to make the edges of the tin foil nice and flat, and so I'm just giving them a quick pinch. Then I'm going to put some gloss glaze on the food so that it looks moist. And so we're just going to add some to the gravy and the Salisbury steak and a little bit to the peas and carrots too so that they're a little bit glossy and wet looking. This project was really fun. I highly recommend you trying this one or try to make another TV dinner that you like. Thanks for hanging out with me. Stay funky, my friends.